go with it. But I see a tangent, but that's this whole thing about like creating something. It has been a long time coming, and to me,
Mhm.
I felt like it hitting my third year as what is the Under Segovia show is it's basically a culmination of everything I've always wanted to do since the beginning. Because the tools they didn't exist yet. They do
Yeah.
now. They cost money, of course, but it's a
Mhm.
lot easier to do it. It
Yeah.
wasn't like that back then. It was hard. I have some rough podcasts from way back in the day. Hey, what else could I have done?
No,
I do
no.
enjoy them and
I
I like them.
I had a
And
few
some
people that couldn't get past my first two episodes because I didn't know how to edit the audio quality well, and I also didn't record it very well. And I'd done those interviews like a year before I actually posted them, and so they're just like they're really mad. I'm like, guys, just get past the first two episodes. The other quality gets better, and then from there it just kind of keeps going
yeah,
up a little bit because every time I learn a little bit more. So
I
I
was
totally get that.
I was being a perfectionist with my first episode. I drafted, I like I
Oh
knew I was going to
gosh.
write about because well, I have to also admit that the early episodes of my show are because it's a real estate centric or business now
Mhm.
show was quite frankly informing people about real estate. Like, how do you
Mhm.
make that entertaining when people don't even want to tune in the first place? Like my friends and family, are like, yeah, we support you. It's just that's not my cup of tea. Well, that's not really supporting me. You're not tuning in. It's like, I need the clicks, I need the likes, I need the shares.
Yeah.
um, and so things started picking up when I started doing podcasts in Espanol. So when I switched some episodes in Spanish, I did 6 episodes in Spanish
Mm.
because they were just really informative things. So I could speak to that and keep them condensed.
Yeah.
The one I couldn't do, but is coming up, and it's more fitting now because it speaks to my community. It's going to be like financing and loans and all that. That is coming. So there, I'm announcing it now for folks so they can be in the know. But when things really shifted was when I had to address certain things that were happening at the state level that were affecting real estate. And now I'm like, well, now this is my wheelhouse because I have to address these political actions coming against it. So I addressed that. And as soon as I did that, suddenly Andres is getting political. Like I'm informing you of legislation that is affecting you. And it just
Yeah.
so happens that we live in a one party state and they're the ones pushing it. And I'm telling
Yeah.
you what they are doing. So that's where I got some pushback, but then I started getting noticed by others. It's like, okay, so are you going to be letting in more of politics? Like, no, no, no. I'm going to be addressing it. Just that some people take facts and say, no, you're just giving your political opinion. It's like that's the unfortunate world of politics in the arena of ideas because they just think they're just fighting ideas, but each side is entrenched on their own ideology and said, no, it's this way. There is no other way. There's no in between. Come over here or you come over here. Unless we're never going to agree, whatever. But there is a place and time for that. That's why I do what is called off the record. I do locals because I can't shut up about it either. That's when I invite you to come over here if you really want to have those conversations because I don't want,
Yeah.
I'm done with the shouting. This book, The Under Segovia Show, Transcripts of the Early Days, this is the first book I made. This is over
Mhm.
500 pages the way it's printed, and it's
Wow.
pretty thorough. There's some spacing in between, but the real version has a bunch of pictures and graphics that I legally couldn't put into the book, so that's
Gotcha.
unfortunate. But that is to me, it's history, and it is politically driven because that's what I did. That was the show.
Yeah.
But I'm tired of all the talking heads and the shouting and things like that. That's why I'm like, I'm not being effective if I'm just going to be another shouting voice among all the people
Mhm.
that are shouting. So
Yeah.
it's not gonna. I had to walk it back and reframe my show. So
Mhm.
that's why it's morphed a lot actually over the past several months where I've been doing more interview heavy content. That's it. For lack of a better description, I tell people my show has unintentionally formed into something akin to what Joe Rogan does because all he does is interviews. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what my show has become in a way.
Mhm.
It wasn't always intentional, but it does make it more interesting where it's not just me, but I still have my episodes of
Yeah.
discussing business and the effects that politics have on it and things like
Mhm.
that. And if we want to get you the juicy content, like, oh, go to locals. I'm not going to push it on you unless I know I have to.
Yeah.
But until that point, that's really it's all become a process, and I'm really giving you a microcosm of what is almost 20 years worth of work. So it's been that kind of process to get to this
Yeah.
point. And this show, like I said, when I started 3 years ago to rebrand it, being all pro and business, to finally get to just being comfortable and loose and more authentic instead of just being okay, put on the suit and be pro. It just I needed to get to that point, like finding my
Yeah.
stride.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was trial and error along the way. And people, I had to lose people. You lost me. I prefer the tech stuff. Like I would love to do the tech, but I'm not getting the tech that people are sending me. No one's sending me. I have to get it. And I'm
Yeah.
not one of those people that start their YouTube channel by taking advantage of the Amazon return policy. That is such an awful way to do reviews. If I review a
Mm.
product, it's from a business standpoint because I want to use the product. And if it
Right.
worked, I keep it. If it doesn't, I send it back. But I was getting accused of trying to grow my channel because I was taking products and returning them if I didn't like them. It's like that had
Mm.
nothing to do with me just wanting to review the product.
Yeah.
And then those same people complain like, how come you're not doing any more tech reviews? Because I'm not being supplied the tech.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. That's something that's like really hard about tech channels is like because I like tech a lot. We talked about this briefly before the episode. And like I like tech, but I also like honest tech. You know,
mm,
and a lot of people like once they get the sponsored items, they're scripted sponsored items. You know,
yeah.
it's well, this is the best product I've ever seen. It's like, did you say that about the last 3 things you've done? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't I missed the brand name on the bottom of the channel for this episode. It's like it's sponsored by this. It's like, oh, are you sure? Because oh yeah, you didn't say a single bad thing about this thing. You know, it's like this is the best. It's like, what do you mean? From what you're telling me, this shouldn't be the best thing ever.
Right?
And like if you don't have those sponsored things, it's really hard to like if you want the honest tech reviewers, oftentimes they're having to like jump off of a already successful channel that they're making money off of so they can buy the tech that they have, you know. And like it's a really tricky like narrow road of like honest tech and you know can continually support this channel tech, you know, because if it's sponsored, a lot of the times those sponsored videos are not going to be honest, you know. And so it's that like trying to get that balance. And like I've found a few that kind of do that well. And one of my personal favorite is Mr. Who's the Boss. And he has gotten he will review things, and sometimes the company will be like, hey, can you review this? Like, sure. It's like, and here's what we want you to say. Is like, nope, I'll still review it, but
Nope.
you don't have to give me money. And it's like that's the sigh of relief of like, thank you. You still doing it. You went out and bought the thing so that you could give an honest review because you weren't
Mhm.
going to be swayed by whatever someone else is saying. And you know, I know that with him, I can get an honest opinion. You know, and that's just something hard. Like you know, like you're saying, like you had to get the products. You weren't being sponsored by anybody. Nobody's paying you to go out and buy these things. You have to supply that yourself, and that's just a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah. And speaking of latching, I want to latch on to that because in this speaks to the heart of what I did primarily on YouTube for about 3 to 4 years before I shifted it to introducing business aspect of things. Because Mr. Who's the Boss, I've come across several times, but didn't follow him. I thought it was a little over the top, and I hated the name. And I'm still waiting for him to do that long-awaited episode where he finally reveals why is it called Mr. Who's the Boss.
Oh,
It's
he actually did that not too long ago.
yeah, and I missed it. Yeah, fantastic. So, but
It's out there somewhere.
yeah, so and when I did come across him again last year, no, it feels like it was last year. It might have been a little longer than that.
Time's a little funky right now.
Yeah, I know everything like melts into a
Like
day.
last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, and he gained my respect when I saw him uh basically call out, not in a bad way, some of his fellow major tech reviewers in addressing um certain device that was happening in the industry that he felt that people weren't entirely being honest about. I don't remember which device it was, but then he highlighted more when he talked
Oh.
about the Escobar phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I didn't I hate having to even mention it like this because I respect what he does, but it comes with his share of controversy.
Mm-hmm.
Lou at Unbox Therapy, he has some splaining to do still on certain things, and the fact that he just doesn't address them is what kind of upsets me. Escobar
Sure.
phone, he kind of shilled for it, and I'm like, dude, this thing's a fraud. It's
Yeah.
literally a phone with a gold foil.
Yep.
Mr. Who's the Boss unmasked it. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I mean about holding others accountable.
Yeah.
And I think he and Marcus at NKBHD
Mm-hmm.
were
Yep.
they were talking a little bit about this too.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, you guys need to, um, because of their influence, right?
Yeah.
You
No,
guys,
I mean,
they need to be held
mhm.
accountable like Lou needs to. He's the biggest
Yeah.
one.
And that's something that I think both uh Marquez and Aaron both do well is like they understand that their job as a tech reviewer is something that affects people's everyday life. You
Hmm.
know, they know that like if they say, "Hey, this phone is good," people are going to go out and buy that phone, and if it's not good, that's money those people lost.
Hmm.
You know, and they understand that weight of like I'm I can only in good conscience recommend things that I would actually be okay if my sister went out and bought. My mom went out and bought these things. That's what and like I know Aaron's really good about like, is this the best phone on the market? Yes. Is it worth it for you to buy it? Probably not. You don't
Probably
need
not.
half of these features. It's a great
Uh,
phone, but honestly, this is the phone you should probably get. If these are your needs, you don't need this one.
yeah.
And like he's just very down to earth and realizes that he affects like people's lives. Like he understands that weight and
And
responsibility.
and I think of all the content creators, the big ones, tech
Mhm.
influencers, I think he's the one having the most fun. My kids love watching his videos, and
Oh,
every
he
now
has
and
so
then it's
much
like,
fun.
"Hey, it's Pokemon!" Like, oh, he's a Pokemon fan, all right. It's like
Yeah.
they love it, and the fact that he does like the most random of things. I tested the
Mhm.
22 weirdest devices, or the 22 biggest
Yeah.
devices, or the smallest and largest, like,
Yeah.
and
I
he's
love
buying
his
it with his
random
money.
videos. Yeah, and that's something that he also is again going back to the down to earth. He's also like, hey guys, this is all possible because you guys are supporting me. If you guys didn't, this wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't be able to spend, $2,000 on Wish if you
Yeah.
guys weren't sponsoring me. And like, I love those things because like,
Yeah.
he's he's being honest because like he'll like I love his wish videos just because they're so
Those are
funny.
the most
And
fun.
like
Yes.
I one of my most like shocking moments was when he bought a legit fully functioning iPhone off of Wish.
Yes,
Real
I saw
like
that one.
and I'm like, what do you mean a real iPhone?
He's
Because
like,
like I know
send me
he's
the
not
link.
he's like, yeah, I bought it for like $1. I'm like, and no,
Yeah,
he's not lying about that. And so I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
because he
So
shows the receipts quite literally.
yeah,
I had I do follow Aaron. I
mhm,
don't follow Marquez. Every now and then, just because I'm curious, all right, what does he got to say about it? I'll chime in.
mhm.
He did offend me. I brought it up before because I had to call him out on it. I'm a BlackBerry guy, okay? I come from that
Okay.
world.
Okay.
I never seen someone that has such a large platform do such a lazy take on a device just because he doesn't like a BlackBerry. So he didn't even get the specs right. I'm like, dude, do you realize how many
Hmm.
people you just turned away because you didn't do the homework? Like that, I don't forgive him for that, and I say that half joking
Mhm.
because I'm like, okay, you hate BlackBerry. I get it. It's not for you. Just
Yeah.
say it's not for you and move on, dude. Just don't even cover
Mhm.
it. But the mere fact that he took time to make about a 7-minute video and never clarified, because I sent messages like, you got the specs wrong. And people came over to my channel because I covered that same phone, because I covered every BlackBerry that was going on since 2015. They're like,
Wow.
thank you for giving an honest take on a BlackBerry. That's how my channel took off on tech, because
Mm,
I wanted to be the voice. That was, I think that was the video that broke the camel's back. I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm gonna dive straight into this and become a BlackBerry apostle. Let me spread the gospel of BlackBerry, but also holding BlackBerry to feet to the fire, because I called them out on everything.
right.
But my first appearance on another podcast was actually the Crackberry podcast from the biggest BlackBerry channel called Crackberry, and the biggest website at the time, Crackberry. The guy that runs it, Kevin Mikola, in Canada, he and I did exchange pleasantries every now and then, to stay in touch over the years. But yeah, like I had to be that voice, and that's where those are my most watched videos. I had a
Mhm.
worldwide audience, and people were sharing my videos because they say this guy is speaking from the heart of a business person that knows.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about tech, and this kind of goes to a lot of what we do, actually, you and I too, um, a small business owner doesn't have the economy to scale to buy everything to make their things operate properly.
Mhm.
Like if they're gonna, they need e-commerce, they need an email system, they need accounting and all that to manage things like that. Not to mention telecommunications or whatever. No, that's a lot of money, especially a small business when you're pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yeah.
At the time, and as the developing of technology too, now things were becoming more efficient for us. At the time, the best tool for us to manage business was a BlackBerry. So people didn't understand what it meant to have a BlackBerry, that you can manage notifications, manage all your accounts, to your reminders and everything, and what it meant to have a busy lifestyle, what it meant to just save those 2 clicks. What those 2 little clicks can do throughout a day meant a
Mhm.
big deal, and people didn't get there. Oh, a keyboard, so pathetic. Yeah, but I'm pounding out emails, not text messages here, to
Yeah.
send messages across. I'm not trying to T9 my way through a call here, through the email,
Oh, God. Some people will never know the pains of T9.
and people didn't get it. So that's what my channel took off from, and I was grateful for that. And I show people that, look, that's why I do business and tech, because I'm showing you how tech got me to do my business, and business how I rely on tech. And that's kind
Mhm.
of the hybrid of my show. But
Yeah.
that's where I took issue with NKBHD, because I felt that was the best chance for BlackBerry to reach the masses. And I think that what Marcus review, which was the most watched review of that video, did
Mhm.
such an injustice to the product, and it was a
Sure.
first gen product. I'm like, nope. That's why I unsubscribed to him, and I haven't followed him since. Yeah, I still watch his videos every now and then. I like some of his content,
Mhm.
and I respect his hustle. But I also find his videos boring. They look fantastic, but I find them boring, which is why I enjoy someone like Aaron, where Aaron, and everybody has their voice, and that's cool. Like
Yeah.
Lou from Unbox Therapy, I unsubscribed to him because like every video was the same. Put the product in front of him, it's the same. Like it's the
Mhm.
same video, like you mentioned. All that's missing is the sponsored brand at the bottom. He's saying the same
Yeah.
thing in every video. It's like, oh, dude, hey, I'm done. This is just the same episode I just saw last time, you
Yeah.
know. And that's why I was done with him. My favorite though, and I credit to him, and I'm gonna name drop in here because he's the one that encouraged me to do my YouTube video. Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher, when he was still at Pocket Now, he's the
Okay.
one. I reached out to him. It's like, "Hey, look, I'm really curious to starting, man. I just don't even know where to begin on this." And what he mentions, like, hey, you know how I did it? I use a cell phone camera. That's how I did it. I crappy audio. And then he shared that he made an episode of that on YouTube for Pocket Now, just to share his experience. And then I'm like, all right, dude, I'll do it. And I'm like, we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Now look at me, 7 years later since I started.
Yeah.
So